Hi, this is Justin Humphreys, and I'm honored and delighted to be here today to discuss a film I absolutely adore and have seen about a million times. Roger Corman's The Little Shop of Horrors, written by the great Chuck Griffith. And joining me today is the star of the film, the great Jonathan Haze, who played Seymour. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello there.
Now, one of the funniest things about this, to start with, is the soundtrack, which Roger Corman reused, I think, 6 or 7 times in his movies around this period. Same Fred Katz music is in Bucket of Blood and Ski Troop Attack and The Wasp Woman. I mean, he was never one to waste a good score. And I love these opening titles. They were supposed to be stock footage in the script, but instead he had this kind of comic version, this comic strip version of downtown LA. I don't know who did it. I think it's the same people that did the opening titles to his Creature from the Haunted Sea, but I love this drawing. Probably just wound up in the trash somewhere, but it's just wonderful. Well, Jonathan, how did you first come to meet Roger Corman?
Well, I was working in a gas station on Santa Monica Boulevard, and a funny little guy used to come in all the time named Wyatt Ordung, and he told me that if he ever got in a position, he would use me in a movie. Well, one day he came in a gas station and said, "Come on, I want you to meet Roger Corman, who's going to direct this movie." So I made an appointment and went into Roger's office, which was really the cloakroom at the Cock and Bull restaurant on Sunset Boulevard. And he had the tiniest office I'd ever been in. I think that the desk was bigger than the room. And Roger was a nice-looking, very clean-cut. He looked like he was well-educated.
Joe College. I think Chuck used to say they kind of called him Joe College.
What?
Joe College. Like they used to kind
yeah.
of call him Joe College.
I think he had one suit, though, because every time I saw him, he had the same suit on.
Well, you wound up becoming a major contributor to his early years in the movies because you introduced him to so many of the key people that he worked with, including the great Mel Wells here playing Mushnick. Who did you introduce him to at that point?
Oh, God, I introduced him to Mel, to Chuck Griffith, to Bruno Vasoda. I can't even remember who else. But I took them all up to his office in the cloakroom at the Cock and Bull restaurant, and he hired everybody I introduced him to.
Well, we just had Dick Miller walk in, and I mean, to a lot of you, he needs no introduction. He's one of the great movie character actors of all time. So prolific, and I'm going to digress for 1 second. That's Chuck Griffith, the screenwriter's dad, right there as the dental patient being tortured by Dr. Farb. And Chuck told me it always annoyed him in this scene because right here at the end of the gag, his dad anticipates the drill going in, and it always kind of made Chuck wince. But there's more of Chuck's family in this. We'll talk about them later. But so how long had you and Dick known each other, Jonathan? When you guys came out here together, I think, right?
We didn't come out together, but we came out at a similar time. I came first, and then one day I was standing in front of Schwab's drugstore, and there was Dick suddenly in my face again. We had been friends in New York. We hung out at a restaurant called, what was it called? Oh, my. The Bird in Hand.
Bird in Hand.
And Dick was a friend of mine named Earl Barton, who was a dancer and choreographer. And he introduced me to Dick.
And Dick came out here, I think, originally to be a writer, right?
To be
I think,
a what?
A writer. I think he originally wanted to write.
He would have been anything that anybody would let him do. Yeah.
Now, it's funny, actually. Mel would always talk about the dialogue in this opening scene and how it was all written by Chuck and I think Dick had mentioned that some of it was improvised, and I checked the script, and some of it is Dick's doing. Dick was always, I've been through a lot of his scripts, and he would always make notes of new dialogue, and he'd come up with new lines, and he would change things. But like here in this scene, there's a few lines that are his, like where Mushnick introduces himself. He goes, "Gravis Mushnick," and Dick goes, "Oh, that's a good one." And then there's the exchange between him and Mel where he goes, "You think so, you Fouch?" And he goes, "I know so, you Mushnick." That's Dick. So they were now. Dick was originally going to, I think they had offered him the lead in this because this is basically Little Shop. The whole structure of Little Shop is basically, it's the same plot as, the same plot structure as A Bucket of Blood, the black comedy that Roger had just done. And he originally offered the role of Seymour to Dick, and Dick said he didn't want to do it a second time. So Jonathan, after Dick turned the part of Seymour down, they approached you about it, right? Or Dick recommended you.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, in those days, I think one of the great things about your work with Roger was you got to play so many different characters.
Right.
You were an Indian, you were a gangster, you were a cowboy.
Deep sea diver.
Just everything. Now you're just wearing your street clothes in this, right?
Well, they weren't my street clothes. They were my own clothes that I had brought from home, and they liked them, so I just kept them on.
We were talking about these people that were kind of part of Roger's ongoing company. This was the movie's narrated by Wally Campo, who was a regular in Roger's films. He's in Tales of Terror and Machine Gun Kelly and stuff, and he shows up later as one of the kind of Dragnet-style cops. And originally, the script was called The Passionate People Eater. Is that, Jonathan, is that what you all shot it under?
Yes.
And it was, I'm assuming they dropped that title because it was not long after Sheb Wooley's Purple People Eater had become a hit, and I think somebody thought there might be legal issues or something. But besides, Little Shop of Horrors is a better title.
Right.
Now this was shot at, Jonathan, this was shot at the end of 1959, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, it was right, I think, between Christmas and New Year's. And you guys filmed over at the Chaplin Studio, right?
That's right.
And Roger had shot Bucket of Blood there, and actually interiors and exteriors. How much direction did you get from Corman on this?
Well, Corman really liked everything that was happening. He would laugh and ruin the scenes at times because he thought it was funny. But
oh, by the way, this is that's the Rochester house that was. It wasn't part of the Bunker Hill neighborhood, but it was adjacent to it. It's of course long since demolished, but and we're going to be talking a lot about Chuck Griffith that wrote this. He was a brilliant, totally unique, totally eccentric writer, and this is his grandmother Myrtle Vale as Seymour's horrific hypochondriac mother. This is some of the funniest dialogue in the movie, and there's a lot of funny dialogue in it. She had been the co-star with Chuck's mom on Merton Marge. His mom's name was Donna Damerel, and she had died young, and but they were the cause of what they said it was the cause of the two radio household, because they were up against, I think, Amos and Andy, and they would have two radios in the house to go between them. But Jonathan, what do you remember about Myrtle Vale?
Well, she was a natural comic. She was very funny. I think she was drunk most of the time.
Yeah.
But
just getting into character, I guess.
Yeah.
But you guys' interaction is so funny here, where you tell her she should be playing fullback for the Rams, and she goes, "He wants me dead."
Neuritis, neuralgia, headache. If hit by a truck, call your physician.
Now that it's interesting in the script of Little Shop, the apartment is described as like it's far, far worse than this. It's covered in garbage, and the only way to get in is through the fire escape and the window. Now tell me about Chuck Griffith. What was Chuck Griffith like in those days?
Chuck Griffith was the funniest person that I'd ever met in my life. And he wrote the wildest dialogue.
There's really he had a really unique voice, and that's rare even now with writers.
Well, he was the voice of the plant.
That's right. Chuck pops up throughout this movie. I think he plays like 5 or 6 parts, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, he's the voice of the plant. He's the stick-up man later on. He's a shadow on a wall. He's the patient running out of the dental office. I mean, he's actually a pretty decent actor, but he was a brilliant writer. Quentin Tarantino called him the poet laureate of the drive-in. Now, one of my favorite parts of this movie is this footage of Skid Row and downtown circa 1959. Chris Fujiwara, the writer, said that films are historically precious, and it does capture something that's just completely gone. I think that was like 5th Street you guys were shooting on. But there's actually in the script, there's some more background detail about the plant's origins that got dropped in this dialogue. In the original script, Jonathan, they ask you what the plant is. You go, well, I'm not sure. I got the seeds from a Japanese gardener over on Central who found them in with an order that came from a plantation next to a cranberry farm. None of his seeds were any good, but these were marked experimental, and he gave them to me. That last line's dropped. And the gag at the time was there had been a big scare that Thanksgiving over cranberries. Jonathan, do you remember that? The whole cranberry scare?
Oh, yeah.
And so what happened was that was a gag that they would have gotten, but now it's been kind of lost to time. And then there's a note that says, there's a little more dialogue where you say, on the back of the package, somebody had written hybrid Dionii muscipula and Pingicula planifolia with notes on how to get them started. I did what they said, and the plant started out fine, but now I don't know for sure. Now, that's what he's saying is those are the scientific names of Butterworth and Venus flytrap. So that was what they changed it to for obvious reasons. But now tell me, okay, Jonathan, tell me about the guy that was operating the plant. Once the plant starts opening its mouth and everything, what do you remember about that?
Well, he was the guy that designed it and built it. And he also did the one for the Broadway play. Mm-hmm. And he was inside there and operated it manually. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was nothing magical about it. It was this guy sitting in there, and he read his cues and moved the plant's mouth.
And you said he was from New York? That was about all you remembered.
Yeah, he was a prop maker from New York.
Because I think the company that made the plants for this was it Dice Incorporated, who were they did the crab for Roger's Attack of the Crab Monsters, among other things.
Right.
He was probably hiring them because they were cheap, but that's classic Roger. But yeah, the story that Roger always told about this was he was able to there was a standing set at Chaplin. He was talking to the I think the studio manager. He was able to rent it for just a few days, and so he had Chuck write this very quickly in the style of Bucket of Blood. And Jonathan, did you guys have rehearsal time on this?
Oh, we rehearsed the scenes before we shot them, and I think we had a read through before we started, where we just read it through and kind of played with the lines if we felt like it. But that was where we did most of the creation, was in the read-through, because when we got on the set, there wasn't any time.
Right. I think that one of the reasons the movie works so well is it's shot almost like live TV, where as he did in those days, and there's a real pressure cooker atmosphere. Was it very high energy, Jonathan?
Oh yeah, very high, and we all got along well, and we all had fun doing it.
And because it's interesting, the script, Chuck's original script, is like 106 pages. So, of course, with a page equaling 1 minute of screen time, you'd think it would be much longer. But it's mostly fast dialogue. It just moves and moves and moves at such a clip.
Seymour!
My boy!
You're the most magnanimous person in the whole world!
Look on him, Audrey. Isn't he beautiful? Isn't he delicious? Isn't he got the $2 raise? What happened to your fingers?
Bee stings.
Now, tell me about working with Jackie Joseph on this.
Well, I had never met Jackie before then, and she was hired at the last minute, and I think she was a good choice.
I agree. I think she's wonderful in this because she's so cute and perky and lively and likable, and it's hard to play dumb. It's hard for an actor to play dumb, but she does it in such a wonderful, winning way. It's a really beautifully judged performance. There's one bit of dialogue, of deleted dialogue, that was cut I wanted to mention. When you're nursing the plant, as it was written, Seymour says, "You're the first plant I ever tried to grow, and if you die, I don't know what I'll do. When I was a little boy, I never had a puppy dog like the other kids. The only thing I ever had was a mother. Now I want something that will be healthy. Please be healthy, little plant." And it sort of gives you this, it's strange because it gives you kind of like a psychological idea that makes sense, because Seymour's so used to dealing with this sickly, awful mother that dealing with a sickly plant is like second nature to him,
Float for the Rose Bowl parade, which is made out of flowers. Thousands of them. And we're on the committee that picks the florist and then glues them.
It's funny about this movie. It's so inexpensively made. The set dressing is so basic, and it's got such a raw feel to it. But there are movies they spend $100 million on that bore me to tears. But I've seen this film probably 100 times, and it never gets old. But why do you think it's lasted like it has, Jonathan?
It's hard to say. I think that movies were very serious in those days, and to make a movie that's this far out and funny was really unique, and people really went for it.
Well, and they also, and they weren't doing black horror comedies like this.
Oh no,
they weren't. And also the idea of like a man-eating plant wasn't something that had been really explored at that point. Like there's something kind of like a giant Venus flytrap in Werewolf of London, but this is like, when people think of this, they think this is the man-eating plant movie, But let's talk a little more about Chuck Griffith. I mean, Chuck was he was a great guy, extremely funny, wild imagination, and he was writing lots and lots and lots of scripts for Roger Corman in those days. And you were in a bunch of them, Not of This Earth, and I think he wrote Naked Paradise that you're in. Is that right? Yeah. And Bucket of Blood, of course, is it's a phenomenal script, and it's sad that Chuck didn't get more adulation during his lifetime, because he definitely deserved it. And but I think he and Roger were considering other kind of macabre comic ideas when they did this. I think there was one called Gluttony that was it was kind of like the Specialty of the House episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, where there was a chef feeding his patient, his customers, human flesh and so forth. But now also there's a lot of very Jewish humor in this, like Mrs. Sidi Shiva here, of course, whose name is a play on sitting Shiva, the Jewish mourning ritual. There was something I read about, I think some people reacted to this like it was anti-Semitic. Jonathan, do you remember anything like that?
I remember hearing that, but I didn't feel that it was, so I didn't go along with it.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing hateful about this movie. Now the character. Now, Jonathan. Correct me if I'm wrong. What was it? Gravis Mushnick started off as it was a sort of character that Mel Wells would do at parties,
Right.
and Chuck came up with the name Gravis Mushnick, which is a classic Chuck Griffith character name.
Yeah, he came up with great names for everybody.
I agree. No, absolutely. Seymour Krelboind, Phoebus Farb, Hortense Fischtwanger. What was it? In other scripts, there's like Walter Paisley, Gurnisht Hilfen. I mean, all these. He loved. Chuck told me that he loved Al Cap and Little Abner. So it makes such perfect sense that he would do something in the in that kind of vein, like the way Cap would do Moonbeam McSwine or something like that. Dick said you guys shot this mainly in sequence. Is that right, Jonathan?
Well, I would say so, yes. But we did add scenes later on.
Mm-hmm. Because the thing with the hooker at the end was something you guys kind of made up not long before you shot it, right?
Right. And that was Mel Wells' wife.
Yeah.
The hooker.
Mary Wells, yeah.
And I think we just needed to make the film longer. And
Right.
that was a chance to do a whole separate scene
Right.
that fit in.
Now, how much room did you guys have to change your dialogue and so forth?
Oh, we had as much room as we needed, actually. Chuck's dialogue is terrific. But I don't know that Roger always understood what was happening.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I think that Roger's direction of the interiors in this is just very much kind of point and shoot and very, very kind of businesslike. But I think most of the reason this movie succeeds is Chuck's script and the way you guys interpret it. I think Chuck deserves a lot of credit for this.
Oh, yeah.
And so you guys shot the interiors in 2 days, is that right?
That's right.
And you said you slept in your clothes, I think?
I did, yes.
Yeah. And where were you living then?
I can't remember.
Was it in Hollywood?
It was in Hollywood, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because for those of you outside of LA, it's like the Chaplin Studios in Hollywood. Now, I love the footage you guys shot on Skid Row, like with all these extras and so forth. The way Vilish Lepenix shot it is so cool and moody and everything else. Now, here's the scene at this, I think it's the Southern Pacific Railroad Yard, where you kill the drunken railroad cop played by Bobby Coogan, who was Jackie Coogan's brother.
Right.
And they were buddies of Chuck's, right?
He was a very funny guy.
Bobby Coogan?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's really good in this scene. And he had a kind of middling acting career. Like, he was Humphrey Pennyworth in the Joe Palooka movies. Here he is.
Yeah.
There's Bobby. Now tell me about shooting this scene. Like, Mel wrangled it so you guys could use the train yard, right?
Yep.
And I think he said it cost you was it 2 bottles of scotch or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I had nothing to do with any of the arrangements.
Ah, okay.
I just did my role.
Now, they did this effect here they actually arranged for the train to be backed away from Bobby and then just reverse the film. It's really effective, actually.
Yeah, it worked good.
Yeah. And how long were you guys shooting in downtown LA?
Well, a couple of days.
Yeah.
We did all of the chase and the stuff in the tire yard and the toilet yard. I don't know who found those locations, but they were great.
I think it was Mel. And here you have the shadow on the wall, and it's Chuck Griffith again. There he is. There's Chuck. And there's the kid's voice here that says, like, there's somebody out here. And I think it sounds kind of like Myrtle Vale.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like her doing a little kid voice. Now, this funeral home was over on Venice Boulevard, I think.
Right.
It's Edwards Brothers.
And we borrowed the hearse, and it had a dead body in the back.
Very, very appropriate. perfect for the tone of this. You know, you were talking about the weirdness of this, Jonathan. I think one of the reasons it's always works well is it has this really devilish kind of Charles Addams or Gahan Wilson kind of gallows sense of humor. Now, for the Plant's voice, that's just Chuck off camera, right?
Right.
And I think they were going to have another actor do it, but Chuck was doing so well with it, they left it in.
Right.
Was the crew laughing? Were they into this?
Oh, sure.
Because Roger always talked about how there was a kind of zany atmosphere on the set. Like nobody, I mean, there's not that much money at stake, and it's not that much time. So it's like, it seems like everybody was having fun. Would you say
we
that?
were definitely having fun.
And there's something, again, this movie is so raw, but it's so funny and so entertaining, and it holds up under, you know, endless viewings.
That looks great.
Now, this is coming up as like one of the cheapest sets in the movie. I mean, this is, every expense was spared for this. It just looks like it was filmed in the corner of somebody's house.
Probably was.
Yeah, but I totally forgive it because it's such a funny scene and the dialogue is so funny. And where he asks her, he goes, "What kind of?" Goes, "What do you call this salad?" And she goes, "Caesarean." And there's all those great malapropisms the two of them have throughout it.
I'm looking for the matches, and I found I left the money in the other suit.
Here's your mock chicken legs.
You don't have any money? So what else is new?
All right. I made a mistake. After all, a man is entitled.
Go on, this is your story. I'll wait for the punch.
Don't get smart with me.
So yeah, Jonathan, when you guys were shooting in downtown LA, I think it was like most of it was on 5th and the funeral home was over on Venice Boulevard. There's the tire yard later, which was on Linwood. And when you guys were shooting, what was the story on all those extras you found, the winos and things?
They were real winos down on Skid Row, and we were paying them 10 cents a walk through. And we had a line of them that would wait for their 10 cents, and they'd go to the liquor store.
And you can kind of see a crowd of them gathering in one of the shots. Yep. And were they cooperative?
Definitely. For a dime, wow.
And it was just, the crew downtown was just, I think it was Roger wasn't there at all.
No, Roger wasn't.
It was Chuck,
Mel,
Vilish Lepenix, the cinematographer, right?
Yep.
And you and I think Mary Wells, I think it was Mel's wife, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to digress for 1 second to show you, I mean, almost all of this is in the script. I mean, almost everything you see in the film is in the script, right down to the signs that are hanging in the shop, like lots, plants, cheap, all that stuff. That was all written by Chuck. So,
right.
I mean, every little part in this is memorable too. Like the salty waitress here. I mean, it's a raw film. It's a movie that's rough around the edges. I mean, Roger I think he spent, how much did this cost, Jonathan? Was it like $25,000?
I have no idea. I was not on the production side of it. I only acted in it.
But there's just something about this, like it just moves and moves and moves, and the dialogue's so funny, and it's again, you guys had such high energy when you were doing it. Now I love this. Like when, again, we're downtown, it's the exterior. Roger never bothers to change the sign on the Mission where they have all the guys outside. He never puts up a Mushnik sign or anything like that. It's a minor detail, but it's just that's classic Corman. And you guys were not shooting with permits, right?
I don't know.
Okay. I doubt it. I don't know. I don't think Roger ever did in his life, but
I mean, we didn't look like a movie company.
Right. And it was just like, what is it? You had like, what was like a generator on the back of Chuck's VW or something?
I don't remember that.
I think Chuck had mentioned that, but he also said something like he had spent like, I think it was like $1,100 for all the footage you guys got downtown.
Eat up the people.
And we're going to have the big part of it open.
Now, what do you remember about Villish Lepenix that shot the second unit stuff?
Oh, Villis was an interesting non-union cameraman who shot a lot of movies. And he would sit at the camera with a quart of beer next to him, and he'd take a slug of beer and shoot away.
He did good work. He shot a bunch of stuff for Curtis Harrington, like Night Tide and Queen of Blood and things like that. He was really good.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say, you and Mel have such good chemistry here. And, like, I mean, the timing is so good. And there's another one of my favorite lines here where he goes, "You wouldn't lie to your father." And you go, "My father came back?" "No, you idiot, me!" One of the great things about Chuck's humor, Jonathan, I think, is there's a very kind of British approach to it. Because, you know, in British movies so often, like in the Ealing comedies, like there's always, it's the asides and the throwaway lines that are so funny.
Right.
And the throwaway lines in this are so good. Like just little things you guys toss off. Like earlier when Mel's on the phone with the dentist, and as he's closing the conversation, he goes, "Who am I to argue with science?" I can't tell you why that's so funny, but it's a hilarious line. No, I was going to say in the next scene, there's the two cops, and one of them is Jack Warford. Tell me about Jack Warford, Jonathan.
Well, he was a friend of Chuck's that was a photographer. He took pictures for people in a department store. I don't remember which one. But he wanted to be an actor in a real bad way. And Chuck gave him the shot.
I think he and Chuck used to go on like camping trips together and stuff, because I remember seeing a picture he took of Chuck out camping, but he later on he did portrait photos of people and so forth. Here's Chuck again as the patient here in the dental office. That's him screaming and hollering. And the title of the magazine you're reading and that Jack Nicholson reads a little later is Pain. That's also in the script. There's Chuck. And there's John Shaner.
Right.
Did you know him at that point, Jonathan?
What's that?
John Shaner, did you know him at that point?
Yeah. He was around Schwab's at times too.
Because you guys were always hanging around Schwab's. Like Schwab's was the big hangout, right?
Right.
Now it's interesting. Shaner, he acted on and off for a long time, but he was, I think, a buddy of Jack Nicholson's,
Yes.
and he wound up writing Going South for Nicholson, and he wrote some other stuff too, like the 70s version of Island of Dr. Moreau and so forth. But what do you recall about shooting this scene, Jonathan?
Well, Roger borrowed that dental thing. I don't know what they call it.
Yeah.
But he borrowed it from his dentist.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I don't think he paid anything for it. And at the end of the scene, it kind of gets knocked over. And Roger ran out to catch it.
Right.
Because he didn't want to have to pay for it.
And again, the dialogue delivery here is just beautiful. You guys, your timing is so on. But now it's interesting. One thing Roger would always do was when he could do something slightly more cheaply, or he could cut a corner, he almost always did. Like later on, the way this was originally written, you're supposed to stab him in the eye, and I'm sure it would have cost more in terms of makeup and so forth, so he just has you stab him. But now, Jack Nicholson, who's about to pop up a little in just a little while, did you know Nicholson at that point?
Yes.
Where did you know him from?
From Schwab's drugstore.
Oh, okay.
That's where I knew everybody from.
Right. Because this was one of Nicholson's very first movies. I think he'd done like one. I think he did The Crybaby Killer and maybe one or two others. There he is. Look at that kid. and he's very, very funny as this masochistic dental patient. No, I think as he said something about, I think Roger, this had been written for an older actor, and Roger didn't really want him for the part, but he auditioned anyway, and he got it. And this scene, I mean, this scene gets revived a lot. People bring it up a lot.
Yeah.
And it was funny when this started coming out very regularly on video in the 80s. It got to the point where it was Little Shop of Horrors starring Jack Nicholson with Jonathan Haze. You know, but what do you recall about him at that point?
About Nicholson?
Yeah.
He was a funny guy. We had done another picture together.
Because you were in The Terror together after this.
What's that?
You were in The Terror with him after
Right.
this. Yeah. Yeah.
Dick Miller was in it too.
Right. Right. And now this is this kind of like really dark humor about, you know, sadism and masochism and all of this. That's classic Chuck Griffith.
Yep.
Classic Chuck Griffith. And I remember Chuck told me one time, he said, I hate movies with heart, especially sports movies. And he said he fought against sentimentality in his scripts as much as humanly possible. Now, how did you approach the character of Seymour? You had kind of played sort of dumb characters in comedies before. Was that how you went about it?
Pretty much. I mean, I just wanted to be naive.
He is definitely that. And this is all at Chaplin, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Nicholson's really giving it his all. Now, do you remember was there anything that was shot for Little Shop that was cut?
That was what?
Edited later on that was deleted?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't think there was. I think it was... There's some bits here and there that were in the script that Roger didn't shoot. Like I said, he would always try to find something he could cut here and there, if it would save some money. Now, originally after this scene, there was a thing they wrote where you're carrying Dr. Farb's body down a hallway, and you're pretending like you're drunken buddies, and you're drunkenly singing "Tenting in the Old Campground." You guys didn't shoot that, right?
No.
Okay, yeah, I thought not, yeah. Oh, here's the thing you were saying, right? Where you knocked it over?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys were just racing, shooting this, right?
Yep. There.
Yeah, they're there.
Well, Roger ran out and caught it.
Now here, when he turns around, he's got these blacked out teeth. The makeup was done by Harry Thomas, who was kind of like an all-purpose, low-budget horror and science fiction makeup guy. Yeah, there he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Harry Thomas did you all's makeup too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And the same guy that did the smaller plants was inside here, right, with the giant one. Yeah. Yeah. But again, I mean, the set dressing and everything is so minimal. But it's...
But people like that.
Yeah, I do too. It's again, it just feels like either like a play or like, you know, live TV or something like that. And so much of it again is the script and you actors. Did you guys blow many takes when you were doing this?
Yeah, we did. But usually when we blew takes, it was because we didn't like what was going on. And if we didn't stop it, he'd have let it go and he'd have printed it. So if you didn't like what you were doing, you'd foul it up so that he would do it again.
Right. This is, I mean, downtown, this is a long vanished downtown LA, and there's City Hall. This was, it actually looks much worse now. Downtown LA just looks like a war zone. Now here's Wally Campo and Jack Warford as the two cops,
Right.
Stooley and Fink. They're doing the Dragnet parody here with that staccato dialogue. this exchange is so funny where they talk about his kid dying, and there's like absolutely no. They've got that totally deadpan Jack Webb delivery. Also, the names, I mean, I'm sure most of you have caught this already, but the names Stooley and Fink are, slang terms for snitches. Did you know Wally Campo at this point, Jonathan?
No, I didn't know him before.
Yeah. He actually just passed away earlier this year. I was really surprised. Made it to 99. But again, the way that scene is about a page of dialogue, but it's just about 2 words with each line, so it just shoots along. I see movies all the time now that are 2.5 or 3 hours long that should have a half hour or 45 minutes cut from them. But this movie, it moves like lightning. It's like 70 minutes. I think a lot of younger directors could learn from something like that. Now, what do you remember about the big plant? Did it function properly when you were filming?
Yeah, I mean, it was very simple. It was not a very special effect. It was more just get something done.
Yeah. Was it just like papier-mâché? Something like that?
Yeah, it was all kinds of papier-mâché and straw and other stuff.
Nobody else ever did.
Well, I do like to.
You do? You really do? You like to kiss me?
Sure I do.
No, it's interesting, of course, this movie's had such a great afterlife. It's just kept going and going. There's been so much re-interest in it over the years. It's very funny how, Joe Dante and Alan Arkush both cast Jackie Joseph and Dick Miller as couples in their movies. And of course, this is where it all started. There's, they play a couple in Get Crazy, and of course, they're the Futtermans and the Gremlins movies, and they're superb. You all are just wonderful.
Oh, we got the list with the float.
Okay, let's take a look at it. Okay.
Hi, what's cooking?
Look at my plant.
My, what a large one.
Yeah.
There was also originally a scene before the dentist, the whole sequence at the dentist where you go to visit your mom, and that was never filmed. I think they just incorporated the dialogue earlier in the script. Now, Leora Wendorf, she didn't appear in much, but she's great here as Mrs. Shiva. Do you remember much about her?
No. These people were brought in, they did their roles, and they were gone.
Yeah.
In the 2 days of principal photography, you had to keep moving.
Right. How long in the day were you guys shooting? Was it like 10 hours, 12 hours?
Oh, at least.
At least. And Archie Dalzell was the cameraman on this. What do you remember about him?
He was very military, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I worked later on with his son, who was an assistant cameraman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But Archie was very good.
How many cameras did you guys have shooting on set?
I never remember there being more than one.
Okay.
Right with the police.
Hello, Aunt Sitting.
Oh, isn't it terrible what happened to your boy, Frankie?
Those are the brakes.
I think he says later on, he goes, just the facts, ma'am, and another Dragnet reference. Of course, it was so hugely popular then.
You wouldn't kid your father.
My father came home?
Me, idiot! It's a figure of speech. Now look, I can't stand any more of that plant. It's growing me out of house and home.
So let's talk about Mel. Tell me about Mel in those days.
Well, Mel was kind of a scout leader. He had a lot of friends from Schwab's, actors, and he was doing small roles, and then Chuck wrote this part for him, and probably the best thing he ever did.
Yeah, no, he's perfect. Of course, it was tailored for him. Because he was kind of, Chuck was, and I'm not talking out of school here, Chuck was kind of a lazy guy, which is so funny because he was so prolific. But the reason he was prolific, and back me up on this, Jonathan, he needed an adult around to kind of push him, right?
Yeah. And he had several in his life.
I know Mel was one of them. Who else do you recall?
Mark Hanna.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who else.
Because I think because Chuck loved eating and he loved smoking weed, and but his output was pretty strong. It was just he could have done much better, you know.
Oh yeah.
Now I got a question for you, Jonathan. Is that Daniel Haller behind her?
No.
Okay, all right, good. Because I always wondered, it looked kind of like Danny Haller, and I kept wondering who it was. It's just some random uncredited actor.
No, I don't know where he came from, but that's the only time I ever saw him.
Right.
So.
Right. The
Raised it in a coffee can.
And Jackie still looks exactly like that.
Oh, she does. She's such a sunny person, and that kind of sunniness and brightness comes out, and she's wonderful in this.
Oh yeah.
You guys are great together. Now, yeah, and later on, you know, Mel started directing not too long after this, and he did a crazy European thing called Man-Eater of Hydra, which has a man-eating plan in it too. And he and Chuck worked together a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, even after, you know, they were working with Corman, but Chuck was such a total character. You know, he was kind of a will-o'-the-wisp. He always seemed to be traveling to Europe,
Right.
Or Israel or whatever.
And for a while he lived in a small motorhome. He and his daughter.
And that was in your driveway, right?
Yeah, but he had it other places too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He had spaghetti sauce and curry all over my kitchen ceiling because he would come in and cook these enormous meals.
But he was a good cook, right?
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
He would rather cook than write.
It was very funny. A friend of his told me he used to roll these like bomber joints. It was 3 or 4 rolling papers together and fill them with weed and then put hash in it. And Chuck was the definition of a character.
Oh yeah.
And I say that in the best possible sense. Did you stay pretty close friends with him in the 60s?
Oh, we stayed friends until he died.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I think he ate himself to death.
Yeah, he was. He needed somebody to push him. He really needed somebody to push him. I think if he had been driven, he would have been like another Paddy Chayefsky or another Terry Southern. You know.
Maybe.
It tastes like cough syrup.
Dr. Flynn's cough syrup. A toast?
To Audrey Jr.
No, to Audrey Sr.
So Roger really wasn't giving you guys a lot of direction.
Not really. Because we were all friends. Most of the leads knew each other.
Which is partly why the chemistry is so good. What was it like working on Corman's movies in those days?
On Corman's movies?
Yeah.
Well, it was okay. I think the movies could have been better. But the sleaze of the movies is wonderful.
No, I agree. Especially, it fits the milieu of this movie perfectly. I mean, this is it's a movie where looking run down helps the thing, you know?
Right.
But you got to do all kinds of things on Roger's movies, right?
Right.
What kind of jobs did you do aside from acting?
On Roger's movies?
Yeah.
I worked as a production assistant. And I did stunts.
And I think you wrangled horses at some point?
Oh, yeah. I did everything. I drove the grip truck for a while.
Uh-huh. And was he doing, because I remember him saying something about SAG at the time. Was this a union production? Do you remember?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm not either. But
I mean, there's a lot of union actors there.
right. Because I think he said that Roger had said something about, I think it was like he could somehow get actors cheaper for a week than he could on a daily rate, or it was like it would cost a little bit more, but it would give him time to rehearse them.
Yeah.
But when you guys were rehearsing this, you were on the set, right?
Yes.
And what else really stands out to you? What are your main memories of making Little Shop?
My main memories were it started and it was over before you knew what you were doing, really. But it worked. Everything seems to work. Even the dumb things work.
I kind of like this chow mein.
If it tastes a little bitter, it's because it's made of Chinese herbs and it's flavored with acro.
Again, I think Chuck deserves a lot of the credit.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm glad Dick turned this down and you got the part, because, I can no more imagine Dick Miller as Seymour Krelboyne than I can imagine you playing Walter Paisley.
Right.
They're such different characters.
Right. I didn't even work on Bucket of Blood.
No. You were in so many other Corman movies in those days. I think one of my favorites is Not of This Earth, which is a really good movie. But they movies like this really just kind of came out of absolute nowhere. I remember a friend of mine saw this when it first came out, and he said he was kind of just flabbergasted, like, what the hell am I seeing? He loved it, but he'd never seen anything like it.
Right. There's
Chuck as Cloy Haddock. He's referred to as a Cloy Haddock in the script, with a fake scar that I'm sure Harry Thomas did. And God, look how young he was. And
funny, I coached Chuck on this scene.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he didn't know what he wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
So I told him, well, just talk to yourself.
Oh, yeah. Where he's that thing at the beginning where he says Friday the 13th, Black Cat. Yeah. How do you think he did as an actor?
He was okay.
Money, take it. You mind I should go out and steal you some more? That's all right, too.
I'm sure it's hard for anybody to play their own lines that they wrote.
He gets into it, like, as it goes on, where he's calling Mel Big Dad and stuff. Like, he does pretty well. But he didn't act much. Like, I think he has a little cameo in Hollywood Boulevard, the Joe Dante thing, and he's got a walk on in this thing he did, the She Beast, but he was never much of an actor. He was really a writer, through and through a writer. And he wasn't a particularly good director either. And I don't mean that in a mean way at all or anything. But it's very funny. I think it's in Eat My Dust. He has a there's a funny moment where they're in a jail, and you just see a guy kind of like clawing at the bars, and he's going, "Feed me, feed me," and you can tell it's Chuck. It's totally Chuck. No, I don't. I mean, this film, of course, inspired an off-Broadway musical, which became a Broadway musical, which became, of course, the Frank Oz film remake, a musical, actually. When did you start to pick up on the effect it was having on people?
Oh, I don't think it was right away. I think it was later on when some actors that had seen it accosted me in Schwab's and wanted to know what we were doing. And it was good.
So you didn't really pay much attention to the reviews or anything when it came out, right?
Not really. I don't know that there were reviews.
Yeah, and there was because Roger would always say he thought this movie would either be, because it was so odd and done on such a low budget and so quickly, he thought it would either be a bomb or a big hit, and instead it was just like a moderate success.
Yeah.
That's how he remembered it. So you didn't. This movie didn't really impact you for quite a while, right?
Not really. I don't think it ever really did. I mean, I worked after that, but nothing great.
When did you start picking up on the fans? I mean, I think it was maybe like in the 80s that you started seeing people get really into it.
Yeah. I was invited to Eric Hayden's store on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, yeah.
And he ran a print of it, and everybody just loved it and went crazy. But that was about as much recognition that I had had up to that point.
Right, right. And you actually, I think he said, he was saying, what did you bring to sign? And you hadn't brought any photos or anything, because you didn't know it was there.
Right.
Eric was a great guy. I miss him very, very much.
Right.
I think we all do, but like everybody does. But it was funny. Chuck was talking about little intimations he had of it being picked up. Like he was working on The Young Racers for Corman, and Francis Coppola actually ran over to him and said, "You did Little Shop of Horrors," and was really, really excited about that.
Right.
And he also said Michael Reeves, the director Michael Reeves that did Witchfinder General and all that. He would tell Chuck about how it was being discovered in England and appreciated in England and showing up on TV there. But do you remember it playing on TV much in the 60s and 70s?
Here?
Yeah.
No.
Because I think it was in the public domain, so it exploded on VHS in the 80s. I mean, I'm sure you remember there were endless cheap VHSs of it.
Yeah.
And so many of them are missing that film group thing at the opening, the little animated intro. But how do you think it holds up after all these years?
Well, considering what it is and what it was, I think it's held up amazingly. Everybody loves it.
I agree. And would you have approached the character, if you were doing the character now, would you approach him differently? Is there anything you regret about it?
Not really. I just played my silly, naive self.
Because like I was saying, you kind of developed like a shtick playing sort of dumb characters.
Yeah.
In in Not of This Earth, and then the soldier with Dick in It Conquered the World, and in Naked Paradise, all that stuff.
Yep.
Didn't that start with one particular character you'd played, like a dumb gangster, I think?
I played two dumb gangsters before that.
Mm-hmm.
One was in Summer Stock,
mm-hmm.
and one was in a picture that one of my friends from Schwab's put together,
mm-hmm.
called Brooklyn, USA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there were like a row of gangsters, and I was one of them.
What's Brooklyn, USA? I don't know that movie. Who was it that did that?
Who was what?
That did Brooklyn, USA. Who did that?
Well, the guy that put it together and directed it was named Dick Benedict.
Uh-huh.
Pepe Benedict, they called him.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know that he ever did anything else.
Yeah, because I've never heard of it. I don't even remember seeing it on your filmography.
Yeah.
Who knows if it got much of a release?
I don't know.
Now this was just you guys there was barely any time to light any of the interiors, right?
No, they lit them, but very much like television.
Right.
Flat.
Right. Yeah. It was just point and shoot and get it done as quickly as possible.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, nobody realized what it was going to become.
Right.
I mean, we were just doing a job, a quick job.
Yeah. It's very theatrical. I mean, you can tell it's a backdrop in the background and all that.
And I starred in a movie and I earned $400.
Yep.
And furnished my own wardrobe.
The glamour of working for Corman. There you go.
Yeah.
And I think Chuck was paid like $800 for this.
I don't know. I have no idea.
I think he said it was $800 and he wrote it in like 2 weeks. And to have created something that's lasted this long and this influential and this beloved in 2 weeks is a major accomplishment.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and the thing about it is, Feed Me will live forever, you know?
Absolutely.
Every writer hopes they create some line like that, like, you know, Patty Chayefsky with, you know, I'm mad as hell and I won't take it anymore. And for Chuck, it's Feed Me. It's Feed Me. That will live forever, and that's Chuck's doing.
Right.
Waste no time.
The scene coming up with the hooker with Mel's wife Marie was you guys came up with that not long before you shot it, right?
Right.
Because not in the original
We
script.
needed to add some length to the movie.
Right.
And that was just 2 characters, and we shot it as part of the second units.
And this was just up at I think that's Chuck's VW that just drove past you.
Could be. There's Mary.
Yeah, and that's Angel's Flight Station. For those of you who are not from LA, this Angel's Flight is a funicular railroad downtown near what used to be Bunker Hill, and this is all being shot down there. It's changed a lot. Like, all of downtown that you see in this movie has changed a lot since then. You guys were just basically kind of improvising this, right? Or just making it up as you go along. Now, her line here where she says, "My name's Leonora Clyde, how's the rain on the rhubarb?" That confuses people, but it was Chuck told me it was a Phil Silvers line from Sergeant Bilko. He loves Sergeant Bilko, so he put that in there.
Well, hello there.
What was Marie Wells like, Jonathan?
She was nice.
I'm assuming this all went smoothly. This was all pretty quick, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
And this is on 3rd Street, I think. Like right over near Angel's Flight. And you can tell you guys just set up a light and just went as quickly as you could, yeah.
I gotta find food for Master.
I mean, to have written this as quickly as Chuck did, it's still very funny. And it's interesting, she didn't appear in a lot of movies. She's in The Ladies' Man for Jerry Lewis, and she's in The Pink Panther, and she died pretty young. I think she died in about 1971.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But...
Well, what kind of food does he like?
Were you all ever hassled by the police or anything like that? Or
no.
Nobody cared about you guys shooting?
Well, we were a very small company.
Right.
I mean, we looked like a group from a college.
Uh-huh. The classic low-budget trick of, like, looking like you're film students, yeah. It's interesting. There's a whole scene that was written but not shot towards the end of the movie, where Seymour's hounded by the ghosts of his victims, and she's not in there. So that was, yeah.
I never thought anybody would volunteer. Do you volunteer?
Sure I do.
Are you surprised by how of the longevity of this movie, of how beloved it is, and
definitely.
You never expected it to become as popular as it did.
Nope.
Flip anything, silly.
Well, there's a rock. Wet or dry?
What do you think's the best movie you did with Corman? What's your favorite of them at this point?
Oh, my.
Because I think Not of This Earth has held up really well.
I like the Westerns.
Uh-huh.
Just give me a gun and a horse.
Because you were there. There we go. Now there's some more great footage of downtown with the Skid Row Seminary and Hotel Panama and all this. And there he doesn't even bother putting up the Mushnick's plant sign. It's just Good News Mission. But who cares? It's a wonderful movie. Now, let's see. Now the tire yard. I think when you guys shoot at the tire yard. In a little bit, that was very near downtown.
Yes.
I think it's near Watts. I think it's Desert.
I don't know about Watts, but I think it was East L.A.
I think you're right. No, I love how they have Seymour's mom here wearing this dress that's about 30 years out of style. They took the time to do that.
Yeah.
And she is great. I mean, you guys are all giving it 110%. But no, as we were saying, there is so much kind of humor with a sort of Jewish Borscht Belt kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
But it's not done with meanness at all.
Right.
Now this was, I think did this play at the Cannes Film Festival in 1960?
Yeah.
I've always heard that. It really did. It was that and Exodus, I think, were the American films that played.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that at the time?
I did, yes.
How'd you feel about it?
I was just happy for any kind of recognition.
Right.
At that point.
Right.
And Roger got a lot of publicity.
Now, when did you get out of acting? When did you move into the production side of things?
Well, I was doing production even when I was an actor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until later on that I started hanging out with the cowboys and stunt guys.
Uh-huh.
And that I enjoyed.
Did you just get burnt out on acting at some point?
Not really. It wasn't really happening for me at that point.
Right.
I don't know.
Because you kept working for Roger. You know, you're in The Terror, you're in X the Man with the X-Ray Eyes and things like that.
Yeah.
But tell us about what you did after that. You were working on commercials and assistant directing, and what all did you do?
Right. Well, what I was doing was I was producing for Haskell Wexler, who had a commercial company. And we had a lot of good commercials that we did.
You worked, I think, with John Wayne in those...
yeah, we did John Wayne,
mm-hmm.
Robert Blake. We
mm-hmm.
did a couple of commercials with him.
And you worked with Haskell for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And periodically you would pop up in movies later, like you were in Vice Squad in a little part and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
Now, where did you guys find these kids?
What?
The kids that are running out of the subway here.
Well, they were a class that was going somewhere for some kind of seminar or something.
Uh-huh.
And we just grabbed them when they came out of the bus. But we had a lot of help.
Yeah.
And a lot of freedom if we wanted to take the kids, we took them.
Right.
I don't think we paid anybody.
They probably had a great time. This is 2800 Linwood Road. This is the Desser Tire and Rubber. This place is long gone, I think, but now I think they're Desser Aerospace, and they make tires for airplanes, I think. But it's such a cool location. This was, I think it was Mel that secured it. Were you guys just making this up as you went along?
What?
Jonathan, were you guys making this up as you went along?
Yes. I mean, there was a chase written in, but all of this was pretty much ad lib.
Yeah, yeah. It's all very simple in the script. There's a scene, like I said, there's an unfilmed scene at the end where Seymour is hounded by the ghosts of his victims. He sees I quote, chalk white ghostly figure of the tramp appears in front of him. And the tramp, with a reverb effect, says, "You're a pretty good shot with a rock, aren't you, Seymour?" And then Dr. Farb's ghost appears laughing and says, "You forgot to pay your bill, Seymour Krelboyne, but you'll pay." And then you hide behind some packing cases, and the stick-up man's ghost appears, and he says, "You didn't kill me, but I'm in with the others. Too bad, buddy." And none of that was shot, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think it would have just been too complicated. And again, like whenever Roger could cut a corner, he would. But I was also going to say, it's funny. There's another. I just discovered this recently. There's another man-eating plant movie from the 60s. I think the 60s or 70s. I'd never heard of, called Adele hasn't had her supper, or dinner for Adele, dinner for Adele, I think. Never even heard of it, but again, you guys are, I think, the man-eating plant movie. I just wanted to take a second, be a little non sequitur. I want to thank some people whose articles and books were hugely helpful in this. Dennis Fisher, who wrote a fantastic article on Little Shop for Cinefantastique, John McCarty and Mark McGee, and then, of course, I'd like to thank Roger Corman, the late Dick Miller, Mel Wells, and most of all, Chuck Griffith. Chuck was a wonderful guy, and I miss him all the time. What do you remember about that toilet shot, Jonathan?
Oh, that was just off the cuff.
Right.
They just decided to do it.
But how does it feel seeing all this again after all these years?
It's strange.
Pleasant, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
The
But I've probably made more money selling autographs than I did starring in a movie.
That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say I adore this film. I've seen it so many times. I know a lot of people watching this have. Jonathan, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come out today and watch this with me.
Oh, I enjoy seeing it because I keep seeing things that I forgot ever happened.
Seymour!
I didn't mean it.
Well, folks, that's all for today, and thank you for listening, and I'll see you at the flower shop.
Okay.